Welcome into the Sports Buffoons podcast. What's going on out there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls out there of the world? Welcome on into the Sports Buffoon studios here. It is some true buffoonery going on as usual here. And it's not a Sports Buffoon show without some chaos along the way. So we're already starting off a little tough here. Tanner and I are going to be sharing a microphone for this one. It's going to be really adorable and cute. And we've shared many things in the past, haven't we, Tanner? So he's now behind the set. So anyways, guys, the good news is we're going to be talking a lot about the AFC South today. So obviously you had last year's division winner, the Titans, and then the Colts were also in the mix there. And we're going to see and talk about if there's going to be a emergence of Trevor Lawrence as well in the AFC with all these great young quarterbacks. If you can become one of those kinds of guys, you know, like the Josh Allens and Justin Herberts of the world. But with that said, guys, what are y'all sipping on first?
I'm going with the usual. I got my rye whiskey.
Rye whiskey, nice. I got good old Diet Dr. Pepper. Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, the DDP right there, the Diet Dr. Pepper, always good stuff. I'm sipping on a little Alani. This is called Witch's Brew. It tastes like a caramel apple. It's actually pretty amazing. So, well worth the 15 calories. So I'll definitely say that on that one without a doubt. So, anything, guys? How you guys feeling today? How's it going?
Feel great. Can't wait to talk about the AFC South, man. That was like one of the worst divisions in football. So
let's not be Debbie Downers here. There's some good teams in this division still, so it's not going to be such a terrible thing.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Ready to rumble. Okay. All right. Well, Tanner, how you feeling?
I'm dandy. I'm good. I had a really good mock draft time last night with best ball stuff. So, looking forward to this weekend when I get to do the $25 big one on Underdog. So, pretty excited.
That's amazing. What do you guys got going on? You got one freaking microphone. What the hell is that?
Well, we told you all about that, Jason, but that was obviously slipped your mind a little bit.
Wait, am I blacked out already?
I would say so, possibly. But hey, the guys, if you're in the Kansas City area, by the way, there's some new cereal that came out. The Travis Kelce Collector's Edition cereal is now out on the shelves. Check that stuff out at Hy-Vee. If you can't get it, if you're not local to Kansas City, well, you can just jump on over to eBay, and I'm sure there's lots to pick from over there. So, all right. Well, we got our special guest, Carlos, here waiting in the bullpen at the moment. So, Tanner, I'm going to go ahead and hand this to you, and let's start talking some Titans.
All right, guys. So we got the lineup here today. Once again, more people coming on for their respective teams that podcasters have related to Let's Talk Sports. First, we're going to have Carlos Chavez of the Mad New Yorker to represent the Titans. You might remember him from our big draft party that we did at Brewbakers for the first round. Then we're going to have, oh, Lord. See, I'm already missing names. Hang on. He's a new one for us. Max Switzer. He's also a scouting guy and also does, I believe, ladies head coach down in, I believe, in Texas. We're going to have him on for the Texans. Then we got not Kyle. That's wrong. I always want to say Kyle. It's Kevin Hickey. He was on the university, Fantasy Football University the other day, the second episode. Really seems like a really great guy. I'm so excited to talk with him. He's going to represent the Colts. And then I do have an email chain here from Tommy that we're going to have for the Jaguars. He won't be on. So you got the Buffoons here essentially for the Jags to finish it out today. So without further ado, guys, let's get it rolling. Let's bring in Carlos Chavez, the Mad New Yorker, who's always very entertaining.
Good evening, guys. How you doing? Thanks for having me tonight.
Man, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
So these Titans, man, it's a little different. It seems like a lot of change has happened. Obviously, we had AJ Brown get traded on draft night when you were on with us and stuff like that. And how are we feeling? How are we feeling about this wide receiver core?
All right. So the wide receiver core and tight ends and a lot of these rookies that are coming in this camp, the team's looking. They're very positive about this. It's a good wave of fresh youth. Young bloods coming in, it's going to help the Titans. They were getting a little bit long in the tooth, But there's news about these guys coming out of camp that this core of young guys are actually ready to play, and they're in there and they're grinding it out, and some of them are going to be starting, and that's what the purpose was when they started the draft and picking players from the board. So they got lucky with Malik falling where he fell to pick him up as a backup quarterback, and even he got a chance to play and show off how fast he can be, and he's got a long way to go, of course, but if they need to put him out there, that's something that they have an option to do, right? So it's looking really good for the Titans. And look, year in, year out for the last 8 years, they've been in, playoff contention. They've been, sniffing around and they've been beating big teams. And last year they just couldn't get over the hump with the quarterback mistakes that had happened. So, we're going to see what happens this year. But people mention in the media that maybe Vrabel will be on the hot seat, but there's no way. He just got Coach of the Year last year, He has a good rapport with his GM. And then on top of that, they finally figured out the ownership situation. And everything right now for the Titans is going the way they wanted to go. Right now it's mixed media because that division is a tough division as far as trying to figure out who's going to come out of there. And myself, I'm predicting the Titans to be probably in the same position they were last year. Maybe not leading the AFC with the 12 games, but they'll be up there and they'll be in the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, so it's talking about Malik Willis there. I thought he looked really good in that preseason game and came out right away and kind of looked like he knew what he was doing right then. But as far as just going back real quick to the receiving group, so I heard originally Treylon Burks was having a hard time getting acclimated to training camp. Is that something that's changed over the course of the last couple of weeks now? What have you heard about Burks, and is he getting better and improving his routes and all those kind of things?
Right. So, I mean, he's young, and the thing is that, they're gonna run him out there, and I think he's just not used to being to having to be all that responsibility. Being an NFL wide receiver is a little bit different, and having to learn exactly doing what you got to do out there. But he's having difficulty, but they're still giving him an opportunity to be accountable, to be responsible, and that's far from half of these guys that come out the first year, right, as rookies, because sometimes they kind of just put them on the bench and let them ride for 6-7 games, and then if something happens, then they get out there and they haven't been on the field. But this they're giving him an opportunity to be out there, and you could tell that he's rough around the edges, but you could tell that you could see the talent and what he has to offer, with the speed. So his hands has got to catch up to his speed, So.
Jonathan?
Yeah, let's just try to compare this to last year because I think a lot of people are trying to say that the Titans are definitely going to take a step back. We look at the wide receivers compared to last year. Last year they had A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. So if we're saying that it's going to be Robert Woods and Treylon Burks this year, do you think that's a step up? Do you think it's the same? Now, granted, Julio Jones he's a washed-up player. But, I mean, do you think that's kind of the same, or do you think they might have a slightly worse wide receiver core, or do you think it's going to be better?
Well, myself, I think that the most important piece for all of those guys is the fact that Tannehill has taken a little bit of accountability and said that he's been seen to shrink. Again,
Oh, we got a freeze.
Very random freeze.
We got a freeze here in the play. Oh, there you go. Sorry, Carlos. We lost you for a little bit there. What was that after the shrink part?
Burks is a younger player, has speed a little bit more than what Julio Jones has because Julio Jones is showing his age. The only thing that they're not getting from him is the fact that he might be a prolific catcher, right? But they're seeing that he's picking up the routes, quicker than a lot of guys have been in before who've come in off the bench for the Titans as number 2 and number 3 wide receivers, second year and rookies. So they're optimistic, and as long as they get the opportunity to try to go and make catches, and there's going to be opportunities for everybody on that team. And the tight end core actually is probably the Titans are probably more optimistic about than the actual wide receivers. Because they know Woods is a solid guy. He's just coming back from surgery. So whatever they get from him, they get, because nobody ever knows what they get when the player goes down, from a knee surgery and then comes back. You don't always get the same results. So, but they feel optimistic with the core that they have from the draft that they picked up all these guys from. So.
Awesome. So let's stick with offense here. One more running back group, right? Derrick Henry coming off his injury, got to play last year in the playoff game. Obviously didn't look Derrick Henry like. And then your depth as well. You got Hassan Haskins from Michigan in the 4th round as well. How are we feeling about this running back depth compared to like last year as well? In case Keen Henry does go down again for some reason, because he did have a leg injury last year, which is very concerning to come back from. Do we think Dontrell Hilliard and Haskins can carry that load for at least maybe a few more games?
And they're looking at these guys, because they just cut Jordan Wilkins, so they knew that he wasn't he couldn't be a part of this core, and that makes you wonder that maybe Henry is doing a lot better than they expect, and not to say that Wilkins is a great loss, because he has a little bit of experience coming from the Colts. And he's a homer, he's from Tennessee and all that, but they just think that, the two guys right now are probably going to be the two guys that are going to be, in it to win it. So, they have a lot of high expectations for this whole offensive group, from the quarterback coming back and being accountable, trying to be responsible, kind of muffed up a few words, about trying to teach the young, Wilkins, but he took it back. So it looks like it's going to be a positive situation for them, for sure. So,
yeah, I do like the depth there running back now, especially with the addition of Hassan Haskins. I thought that was a good pick overall for the offense there. Just kind of going over the defensive side of things, the Titans had the number 2 ranked rush defense in the entire league last year, just 2 yards behind tying the Ravens. And looking over the roster right now, what do you think has changed? Like, is it possible to sustain that going into the next year with this current defense, or how do you feel right now about the state of the front 7 of the defense?
I think the front 7 is gonna be all right. Everything is gonna go and be on the defensive coordinator. He's young. The best thing about what the Titans did this in the preseason or before the preseason started was the fact that they kept Schwartz on the staff. Schwartz is, everybody knows him from the Lions and from being the head coach, and also coaching on some other teams. He's a backup. He's a guy that helps back up the defensive coordinator right now, and they have a lot of respect for these guys, and they're playing a lot to their potential. And now they have an opportunity this year, because they saw what they had last year in defense, to play up even more. Their defense is going to go where their offense allows them. The offense has to be on the field and score and take away from the other team's defense. And if the Titans don't score more than 27 points a game, they're going to have a lot of trouble, because the defense is as good as they play, and they've been improving in sacks in the last 3 years, coming from the linebackers and the outside linemen. As much as they're getting younger and they've improved that, it's not the game has been changing. So their defense right now, the way it's set up, they're very positive about it. They're ready to go, and that coaching staff is doing a good job keeping them on their heels. So, and the best thing that their coaching staff has done also has been rotating these guys out who don't play up to the potential, right? That's then that's what you got to do. And they have a GM that's allowing these moves to happen, and that's another positive thing for the Titans. So,
definitely. You have anything for the defensive side, Jason? Okay, I got one more thing for you on the defensive side here. So it looks like you had a lot of young secondary guys in your secondary, right? First round, 21 round, or from 2021, first round pick, Kalen Farley. Last year, you got second round, Roger McCreary. And then you have another 20 that's in the second round with Christian Fulton, Elijah Molden, and 21 in third round. You got a lot of young guys starting here, man. How do you feel about that secondary? Can't let's just say the front 7 isn't able to get the pressure they need. Do you feel the secondary can keep up with some of these guys, and maybe mainly in your division?
Well, a lot of these guys that are coming in were like are switching over from safety and CBs from college, and they know how to hit guys. And if you've seen some of the tape on some of these kids that are coming in, that's what Vrabel does, man. He takes these guys and makes sure that they play position to the best as they can and to the best of their ability. And that's one thing that a lot of people like about Vrabel is that he can take a defense and make sure that they play up to par. And this young core of cornerbacks and secondary is what the Titans have been needing for the last 3 years, the speed to match speed. They've been beat a lot in the past. Even if you can go as far as when Mariota was on the team, that defense was just letting people run all over them and pass all over them, and especially after the third down conversion. So now they're going to the youth, they're going to speedy guys, and they're going to guys who they can trust back there, who are going to hit other guys and try to stop these plays. And a lot of teams, they're going to rank in the top 10 in defense, and they're going to be looking like Pittsburgh and some of these teams, and even LA Rams with these guys that can hit. And if you're going to watch good games with these the youth guys, for sure. Now, them being young, they're probably going to miss on some plays, but I think they're going to make more plays than miss.
All right. So before we get into prediction time real quick, Nick Bodkins of the Bodkins Show says, "What's up, fellas?" Nick, what's up, dude? Thanks for hopping on.
What up,
If
Nick?
you guys haven't already, please like, subscribe, and follow to the Sports Buffoons as well as Let's Talk Sports. You can find the Man New Yorker as well on TGI Sports. So with Keith there. So prediction time, record time. What do you got the Titans finishing as?
They're going to come out first out of the division from the AFC South. Their biggest competition will be the Colts. One of the things I see with the Colts is they're going with another offensive coordinator and another quarterback in the last 3 years. That's not easy to build rapport, to have consistency. And even if you have Matty Ice, he's a guy that kind of needs players to be on the same page. And I don't think he's going to get that, even though they got a great running game and a solid O-line. I just don't think they're going to have enough to put points on the board. So I see the Titans coming out first, maybe the Colts second, followed by the Jaguars and then the Texans. The Jags might give the Colts a run. I think those two are going to match up more than the Titans and the Colts on the top half. So I have the Titans coming out and being in the first round of the playoffs for sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I like where their defense is headed here, and I think with the coaching of Mike Vrabel and that defense, that those two things alone are going to get them 9 wins.
Yep.
But I think we know. I think we already know what Ryan Tannehill is. I mean, I like the addition of Bobby Trees. Don't necessarily know if he's going to be the old Bobby Trees or he's going to be a half-ass injured bum Bobby Trees coming off of an injury. So I'm going to go 9 wins, 8 losses, not winning the division.
That's quite a decrease, actually, for the Titans after last year. I don't have them quite going that far down by any means. I do have them actually tying with the Colts. I have 10-7 as a record for the Titans, just a small step back. And the reason I'm saying that, I think it's going to be somewhat difficult to replicate having a top 3 run defense back-to-back years. I mean, the Buccaneers did it, number 1 overall run defense 2 years in a row, but I don't know if it's possible to do that again with this situation. Especially going against obviously Jonathan Taylor twice a year too, and the loss of A.J. Brown. I don't know, and going into the draft, I was not a Treylon Burks fan. If he proves me wrong, that's awesome, but I don't know. I want to see it to believe it kind of thing. And speaking of Robert Woods, we'll see how that thing pans out and see if he can continue to fight as age adds up here. But I still think it's going to be a really good team, definitely a playoff team. I have them tying with the Colts, and I think it's a coin flip on how the tiebreaker plays out for me.
I got Titans with 10-7 record as well. I actually think the Titans take the tiebreaker of that, so I think they win the division in the end for that. So not by much. It's going to be tied up, I think, with the Colts as well. So 10-7. just due to the lack of weapons. Obviously, we're not going to see the same Titans team we saw last year be so dominant. And the question was, where's Tannehill's mindset with the whole contract debacle and everything else going on, Malik getting drafted? So that's kind of where I'm sitting at.
Yeah. Well, I just got to say is that Tannehill for the first 7 games, even without Derrick Henry, was almost an MVP candidate. I mean, he was leading his team in rushing. And, that's the one thing that he didn't do was he didn't go in there with that confidence and take the ball in his hand when he needed to make those small, short yardage runs. And that's not something that you have to train for. That's just something you got to do. You just stick the ball in your chest and you run straight forward and you get your 3 to 4 yards and maybe get 6 or 7 plus if you find a more of a hole. So that's what was missing in that championship game was him, using his skills to his ability. He just stood in the pocket. He looked like he didn't know what was going on because he has so many tools. He had too many tools, and he's just too much for him. It overwhelmed him. I just think he got stuck in the moment. And I mean, I feel like if he doesn't get that straightened out, hey, you got Malik back there, and if you're losing, then you'll put Malik in and you give him a shot. You get him experience. If you're not losing, and
what you got?
You're gonna be okay. So the Titans will be all right, and that division is just too wishy-washy, man. So
amen. Well, hey, Carlos, we hope to talk with you through the season as well, of course. And I know I'll try to get you on my Buffoon Bodkins at some point too. So excited for it. Carlos, thanks for joining us, man. The Man New Yorker, you can find him on TGI Sports with Keith as well, and also on Let's Talk Sports. So thanks, Carlos.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good night.
You too. All right, guys. Next up here, we are going to be talking Houston Texans with Max. I hope I say this right. Max Switzer.
Switzer, like Barry Switzer.
I like it. Max Switzer. He's head flag football coach at Heston College, and still a scout at National Scouting Report.
No, I had to stop doing that.
I probably got a little busy, right?
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, welcome in. Thanks for joining us. Happy for you to hop on to talk some Texans football with us. So really do appreciate making some time there.
Oh, I'm pumped. I'm ready to go.
All right. Hey, let's start here, right? So Texans, I think they weren't really, they weren't the worst in the world actually last year, even with Davis Mills. But what I like to always start the wide receiver ranks. What are we thinking of wide receivers right now? Like, how's the feeling going into play? I know you got Chris Conley there sitting in the backup. Philip Dorsett's now on your team. Of course, you got Brandon Cooks. Like, what are we feeling there for the wide receivers?
I feel like we have a pretty solid group. They're not scared to go out and make plays and help their quarterback out. They're going to go and they're going to compete for the ball. There's one receiver that I liked this last preseason game that you didn't mention. His name is Jalen Camp. I feel like he made some pretty good plays in that preseason game. And so I'm not saying he's going to be a starter, but he's definitely going to come in and help out. I like Brandon Cooks. We know he's a burner. So he's going to take the top off and kind of help those receivers, Chris Conley and Nico.
It seems like he's been around forever.
He has been around forever, and he takes great care of his body because he can still move.
28. He came into the league when he was, I think, 20 years old, and he's only 28. It seems like he's been playing in the league for over a decade.
He's just now approaching his prime.
That's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy to think about.
How many teams has he been on now? Is this his fourth team, maybe third or fourth team?
He's with the Saints, and then before this, obviously the Texans now. Who's before the Saints? Rams.
Yeah.
Okay.
So New Orleans, New England, Rams.
New England. Wow, that's insane. So tell me, speaking of the wide receiver situation there, obviously most people know about Chris Moore, Chris Conley, obviously still part of the team, Philip Dorsett, those kind of guys. But what do you think about Nico Collins? He's a guy that I'm not as familiar with, and I'm just curious, do you see a lot of upside with that kind of player?
He's kind of, in my opinion, he's kind of inconsistent last year. He is a big body receiver and very athletic, but I feel like he just has some he has some brain farts. So out there on the field, I feel like his concentration wasn't there all the time when catching the ball. Also when running his routes, I feel there's some miscommunication there. And then, part of that could be Davis Mills as well, just coming into it halfway through the season. And then Tyrod Taylor coming back partly at the end of the season as well. I like Nico Collins. I think he does have a lot of potential. We haven't had a big bodied receiver that can kind of do the things he can do since maybe Andre Johnson. And I'm not saying he isn't Andre Johnson. I'm just saying we haven't had a guy like that to just body somebody up and go get it.
Yeah, there's not very many Andre Johnsons of the world out there by any means. So
We had Hopkins, but Hopkins is his own special breed as well.
absolutely. So thinking about the running game here, getting Marlon Mack on the team, and just kind of looking at the group of running backs you guys had. Obviously, Burkhead is back with the team. You drafted Dameon Pierce. So what is this going to look like? The structure of this offense, is it going to be just a Davis Mills handed off to Marlon Mack type of offense, or is this going to be more of a spread type of system they're going to be running with?
You know, I'm hoping they run it heavy at the beginning. Beginning of the season, get Davis Mills, get his feet wet again. We saw in the preseason that in this first game preseason he wasn't the sharpest. No, he didn't look like he did begin or at the end of last season, which he was really catching fire. And so we got Marlon Mack. I think he's going to be a good person to hand the ball off to. He's also a great veteran, even though he's only been there 4 years in the league. He's still a veteran in that backfield to help Pierce out, and him and Burkhead. We did get to see that Dameon Pierce has a lot of upside, and if he can stay out of trouble, then he's going to do some great things on the field.
Yeah. Do you think he overtakes Marlon Mack? I mean, I've already been hearing that he's possibly going to be a 2-3 down back through the rest of preseason. Do you think if he runs well with the 1s and 2s that he overtakes Marlon Mack for that starting spot week 1?
I think that's on Marlon Mack. I think it depends on how his body feels because he's coming off that Achilles injury. So
yeah, that's the scary part.
He might take most of the rest week 1 just because Marlon Mack may not be 100% yet, after taking hits after almost missing a year.
Yeah,
so
and he's been a huge fantasy option that I've been seeing on my mock draft. So Dameon
Mack
Pierce,
has or Pierce?
Pierce has been going a lot earlier than Mack. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't know. I'm curious to watch this backfield. Jason, you got something?
Let's talk about Davis Mills here for a second because I've noticed that a lot of people in the national media are a little bit high on Davis Mills. Like they think he looks good. Like he's possibly like his ceiling might be, a really good quarterback. So, I mean, do you see him as an above average quarterback? Do you think he's a franchise quarterback moving forward? What are your thoughts on him? Because I think that when I listen to people talk about him, like they especially in Houston, they have a lot of higher expectations for Davis Mills.
This might sound kind of funny because, we kind of knew David Coley's background before coming to Houston. He was a receiving coordinator for the Ravens, and the Ravens haven't been prolific at, with their passing game. But I really think David Coley helped Davis Mills progress through that year. And so I'm kind of iffy on as well with Lovie Smith being the head guy. Nothing against Lovie Smith, but we know he's a defensive guy. And so I'm very curious of how he's going to develop as well. I think Davis Mills has the potential to be the franchise guy. He's, he started flashing that a little bit last year behind the O-line who has been, let's be real, in the last 20 years since the Texans have been a franchise, has never been the staple of the offense. But he really started showing that upside, and his clock seemed to speed up a little bit without him speeding up the game either. So he was getting the ball out quicker. He was doing things he was getting the ball out accurately quicker to those receivers towards the end of the season. And so, again, I'm just curious to see how the preseason, the first 2 games look, and then we can kind of get more of an idea what Mills is going to do.
Gotcha. So let's move to the defensive side here. You got your first 2 picks in the draft were Derek Stingley Jr. with the first round for cornerback, and then Jalen Petrie for the second round, and they're both scheduled to start here. But outside of that, gets kind of worrisome. Steven Nelson, former Chief, former Steeler, that's a little worrisome there because he likes to give up a lot of pass interference calls. Eric Murray, who's not a starting caliber safety. Mike loves him. Well, I'll let him get the mic here shortly. He loves the guy, but and then Taveri Thomas came into play too. But I mean, there seems like a lot of free agency that came into play in the secondary that kind of worries me because it's a lot to be cautious about. So what's your thought on the secondary?
All right. So first, let's start with the two rookies, Petrie and Fingley. And I'm just like, I absolutely love those two picks.
Yep.
Petrie, he looked phenomenal in that first preseason game. And it's hard to say that because it's preseason, but just some of the things that he showed, that you see some that veterans make, some of those moves, the way his body moves out there on the field is a veteran type of movement, not something you see out of a rookie. So I'm excited about Petrie. The thing about Lovie Smith is he's going to help that. He's going to scheme around that with the weakness that we have with Steven Nelson, with our strong safety, and he's going to help that out. And I saw that a little bit when we were in Tampa 2. And you drop that linebacker way deep, deeper than that middle hole, to kind of help with those four verts and with helping support that underneath coverage for the safeties. So I think with him running the Tampa 2, I think that's going to help out a little bit. And he might correct Steven Nelson. This might be the best year that Steven Nelson had because now he's with Lovie Smith. And he might finally get him to move his feet and quit using those hands for all the pass interference.
Maybe.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the rough part right there. Is you got two former Chiefs over there on the roster who, especially Eric Murray, probably doesn't need to be starting for anybody in the league. So that's going to be a rough one right there. Steven Nelson, though, I mean, that's a guy we've seen. Obviously, we've spent some time in Pittsburgh too. Not exactly a hometown favorite out here in Kansas City. He, for some reason, has his own bias against the town as it is anyway. But obviously, the defense is the biggest concern with the Texans at the moment. Offensively, there's some things to work with. There's, not everything's perfect by any means, but I think the defense, who finished, I think, second to last year in yards allowed, and then they were in the bottom five in points allowed too. So looking at the roster now, obviously, I love the draft picks. Christian Harris was an awesome pick, and I love the Derek Stingley Jr. pick, and then a Jalen Petrie as well. Those are great pieces to add in for the future of this team once this franchise is turned back around again. But just looking over the team, I think Jonathan Greenyard. Am I saying that right? Jonathan Greenyard is one of the more underrated linemen. Right, Grenard. One of the more underrated D linemen. Not Grunhard. Anyways, you get my point. Anyways, so just to kind of what do you think this is going to have to do with this defense to get this team somehow in the middle of the pack, or is it just kind of it is what it is, and it's going to be a rough year for them?
I think it's going to be another rough year, but I do think we're going to improve. Y'all spoke about the D line, but honestly, I think what's going to help the D line out are the two linebackers that we have in Kirksey and Kruger. Is it Kruger? Kruger Hill?
Oh, Kamu, Kruger Hill.
Right.
Yes.
From
Miami
that came over.
Mm-hmm. I think those two will help the D line in the sense that they're going to help put them in the right position. They're going to help get them into the right stunts, and they're going to really lead that defense in making a push forward. But as far as we just don't have the guys either on the front line, so we're going to have to do a lot of disguising, and we're going to do a lot of stunts just to have a chance there. But I do think it's going to be a rough year. We will make some improvements, but it's still I'm going to have more gray hairs inside of my head by the end of the season.
But I appreciate the honesty, at least. I mean, at least you're not totally delusional about it by any means. I mean, obviously this team has a lot to work on. I did notice you guys actually have 5 former Chiefs on the defensive side of the ball. Jalen Reeves-Maven, Kevin Pierre-Louis, and Tremon Smith were also Chiefs to add on to with Eric Murray and Steven Nelson. So that's interesting how there's such a strange ex-Chief connection there going on in Houston.
Well, when a team that wins pretty frequently due to Andy Reid, they're obviously going to try to bring some of that culture into the Texans as well. Because I'm not the biggest Chiefs fan, but I love me some Andy Reid. So he knows how to win the NFL. So why not bring some of his guys over, teach the culture a little bit, be a guy who, from a team that knows how to win.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. JC, anything else?
I would just say, what's the over? What do you think the over/under is for Lovie Smith getting fired in the next 3 years?
Next 3 years?
Yeah. Because, I mean, I feel like all these coaches, they've got about 3 years to turn it around. Would you say he's going to turn it around, or do you think he'll get fired?
I'm going to be optimistic here, and I'm going to go the over.
Okay.
I love me some Lovie Smith.
Right, because I, for one, am getting sick and tired of the Houston Texans being that bad. I sure as hell hope he doesn't turn it around.
All right, guys, before prediction time, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow for more sports food content. We still got 3 more divisions to go through before the season starts, so tune in every Wednesday night, guys. So prediction time. Houston Texans, what's their record at the end of the year?
We got 4 wins.
All right, he's matching. So basically, you're matching last year's total. Is that right?
That's correct. I feel like we have a tougher schedule this year. I know we have the Rams, we got the Broncos, who are they're much improved. The Colts look, in my opinion, they look a lot better. Tennessee is going to do what Tennessee does. They're going to ram it down our throats. There's nothing we can do about that.
And Jacksonville looks better too, I think.
They do. I think we're going to split Jacksonville.
Okay, there's one of the wins there.
I think we'll beat the Jets.
Okay, I can see that happening.
Let me look at the schedule. That way I'm not telling y'all some things I thought I had in my head, but just it's all wishful thinking. I think we'll beat the Giants.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Who's not going to be the
Giants? That's a rough team.
I think we have a chance against the Bears.
Yeah, I could definitely see the Texans getting the win over the Bears because the Bears are just going to be a mess regardless. So honestly, last year when the Texans won 4 games, I was actually a little surprised in that. I actually had them winning less than that last year. Just looking at the roster, I thought it was kind of a disaster in a lot of ways. So I actually give them credit for winning. I think 2 more wins than I actually expected. And what you said for 4 wins, you're probably the one guy we've had on the show now that's the most honest about their prediction for their team. Because we get everybody on here, the fans of their team, and everyone's got these high hopes and expectations, and you're the one that's definitely given us, I think, the most realistic expectation. But I'm going to go with 3-14.
Okay.
And yeah, don't kill me here. Basically, if Davis Mills comes out and can build off of last year, then you're looking at more like 5 or 6 wins. But if he comes out and maybe last year was kind of a fluke or just kind of off to a good start in his career and then things come back to normal again, then I think 3 is more likely. But I don't know if he's the future of the franchise, but I think for this current franchise, he's probably not going to be the one to make the plays needed anyway to get some wins.
In the great words of the great Phil Jackson, NBA coach, give Houston some fucking credit here. I think Davis Mills is going to be better this year. And I think he himself is worth 5 wins. Give me some 5-12.
Okay.
I gotta agree with you here.
I think he definitely feels the heat of this next draft class. Knowing that the draft class is going to be QB heavy, and so I think he knows he needs to go out there and perform.
Now I'm going same thing. 4 wins. I think they repeat exactly what they did last year. They have a little better team, so they can compete with some of these other guys. But I just don't see how they get past 4 or 5 wins this year. So I'm going 4 as well. So awesome, man. Hey, are you going to be on Let's Talk Sports, or what are you doing for them right now?
I'm not doing anything right now. So all I've been doing right now is working with my flag team and doing some recruiting. So.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, we hope to maybe get you on a couple times or 2 during the season, just do a check-in and stuff.
Absolutely, just let me know. I would love to come on the show again.
I like it. I love it. So awesome, guys. Max, thanks for joining, man. That's Max, Houston, Texas fan. Actually, I think he's from Kansas too. Yeah, believe it or not. So pretty cool deal. All right, guys. So let's hop into our next team. We're gonna bring on Kevin Hickey. This is a guy that works for part of the Colts Wire and the Giants Wire. And anything else I'm missing?
No, that's pretty good. You covered it.
Okay. He was also part of the Let's Talk Sports Fantasy University episode 2. Definitely tuned in and saw some of that. So definitely appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And Max is from Texas, guys. So I read it wrong. Just correct it. Awesome, man. So I appreciate you coming in and talking some Colts with us here. I did see, in case anybody hasn't missed it yet, there was a injury done on the Colts. Where's it? Torn ACL. Tight end Drew Ogletree has a torn ACL.
Yeah, it's pretty
and
rough.
It's already been updated on Warlads. That's kind of a rough injury, a little bit, but not too bad. But let's start with some wide receivers, man. All right.
Yeah.
So Alec Pierce, who I've heard during my mock drafts, has been getting a lot of attention, a lot of reps with that first team, and they're really trying to push him to be better. My curiosity comes in: can Michael Pittman Jr. go to the next level and be an elite receiver this year with an actual quarterback of Matt Ryan, who has turned multiple guys into good receivers? So, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's a good question. He had a pretty good breakout season last year with Carson Wentz. I don't want to sound like a homer, and I'm not a homer. I'm actually a Giants fan, but I cover the Colts as my main job. But I've said it a couple times in recent days. I really think Michael Pittman Jr. can catch 100 passes this year. That's both a testament to his talent. That's a testament to them bringing in Matt Ryan. It's also a testament to the depth chart behind him. He's going to see so many targets. He already has the trust of Matt Ryan. He even said it today on the Pat McAfee show, basically talking about he spends a little more time with other guys like Alec Pierce, Ashton Doolin, Paris Campbell, making sure they're all on the same page. Whereas when it comes to Michael Pittman, they're basically already on the same page. So he feels he doesn't have to spend as much time with him. So I really do think he can make that next tier jump, but it's all going to come down. I mean, I think he can approach. He had 88 catches last year. I think he was 80. Yeah, 88. I think he can approach 100. But if you want to really get into that elite tier, he's probably going to have double-digit touchdowns, and I don't really know if that's going to be in the cards. It's possible. It's absolutely possible. But I'm expecting a really big year this year for Michael Pittman.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I think that Pittman's going to become Matt Ryan's new Julio Jones, kind of reincarnated in a lot of ways. Looking at the physical traits of Pittman, and I do think he's a good red zone guy. I think he's got potential for it at the very least, being 6'4" and all those kind of things. Big fan of him, and in a lot of ways, ever since Peyton Manning left the Colts, I've liked the Colts in general. I did not like the Colts with Peyton Manning because as a Chiefs fan, that was very frustrating to experience. But I think it's kind of frustrating watching the Colts currently, though, go through, obviously, Phillip Rivers situation was just a 1-year thing, and then Carson Wentz, 1-year thing, and now here we are, Matt Ryan. It's like they just keep doing this veteran carousel, and clearly it's a run-based offense with Jonathan Taylor. I mean, you want to go through him in a lot of ways while also taking advantage of some of the mismatches in the receiving game. The offense, though, I think this is Matt Ryan's chance to kind of get back on track with what's kind of been a down year in the last couple of years. So just looking over the roster, though, I mean, what do you think offensively is going to be the one thing that could stop them from being a top 10 offense?
It's probably going to come down to other guys stepping up. I think you look back at the season they had last year. Wentz wasn't a bad quarterback. I think he was volatile. I think he was inconsistent. And I think the timing of his poor play came at the worst time possible. But you also look at that roster. They didn't have a guy. They had Michael Pittman Jr., who went over 1,000 yards. They didn't have another guy anywhere on the roster that had over 385 receiving yards. So when you talk about what they need to do offensively, they need to be more explosive in the passing game. It's all fine and good when you want to rely on Jonathan Taylor, but he is partly human. So you can't just keep running them into 8-man boxes all the time. So they're going to have to be more explosive in the passing game. And if they're not, that's going to be the one thing that holds them back.
So a lot of people like to trash Carson Wentz. I didn't really think he was that bad last year in the regular season. 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And my question for you would be is, I think we all agree that Matt Ryan is going to be a better option. But how much better is it to you? Because, do you think Matt Ryan could win 1 extra game, 2 extra games? They were 9-8 last year. You think Matt Ryan himself is worth 2 extra wins, or can you put a number on that?
Real quick, Kevin, I know this one. He can beat Jacksonville to get in the playoffs.
You hope.
But go ahead if they're answered.
You hope. No, it's a good question. I mean, I think right now I'm probably looking at them right around 10 wins. So yeah, I'd probably say he's worth at least one win. I agree with the notion that Wentz wasn't a bad quarterback, and he does get trashed because it's easy, right? He wasn't bad, right? He was a fine quarterback. He was a fine starting quarterback. And I think, like I said earlier, he was just inconsistent. You look at the 27-7 touchdown to interception ratio, that was fine. But you get a little deeper with some of the deeper metrics. His work from a clean pocket wasn't that good. It wasn't as good as you would expect it to be with those numbers on the surface. You can get into the whole EPA stuff, and he was more middle of the league, which is fine. You can get by with that. But his peaks and valleys were simply just too high and too low. So, I think Matt Ryan probably adds one win. I think the biggest thing for them is going to come down to their pass rush and especially the fourth quarter pass rush, because that's something that doomed them last year. I mean, I think they were 2-5 in one-score games, even though they had like a plus 86 point differential. So, when you talk about your 2-5 in one-score games, that to me that comes down to two things. It comes down to your quarterback. That comes down to your pass rush late in games. And for the most part, Wentz was fine, but the pass rush late in games just was not there. And that was something that we saw for years under Matt Eberflus, who's now the head coach in Chicago. But, I think Matt Ryan's a great addition. I think he's the type of leader they want. I don't want to sit here and say and bash Wentz and say he wasn't a bad leader. I wasn't in the locker room. I don't know. His teammates spoke fondly of him. But I think Ryan is the more vocal leader. He's the more intense leader, almost to the point where some people might even think he's a jerk. But he's going to go out there and try to get the best out of his teammates and the best out of everyone around him. And I think that's what the Colts wanted. And I think ultimately that's going to make the difference and probably give them a much better chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, I do want to point this out real quick too. Matt Ryan's backup is Nick Foles. So Nick Foles is back to somebody. So they have to, right? I think it's going to happen. All right. So continuing on the defense here, guy, you talked about the pass rush here. Is there anybody on this front seven essentially that's going to be able to help with that this year? Is it going to be able to help out improve that to maybe not have that issue this year?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys actually. They traded for Yannick Ngakoue, who's been on like 6 teams in 18 months, which is wild if you think about it. I mean, the guy's never had fewer than 8 sacks in a season. So, the production's been there. The motor's there. They're seeing that through the first 3 weeks of training camp. He's meshing very, very well with the defense brought over by Gus Bradley. And I think that's going to be an interesting turn for the Colts because, it's still going to be a zone-heavy scheme, and he's not aggressive when it comes to blitzing, but his overall mindset when it comes to the pass rush it differs from Eberflus's because it's much more aggressive. It's much more pin your ears back, get in the backfield, whereas Matt Eberflus's scheme was more the edges were more playing contain, and you try to get pressure on the interior. Because when you have a guy like DeForest Buckner, that's going to happen. But with Gus Bradley, it's more we're going to send 4 guys and just let them eat. Just go get the quarterback by any means possible. So you talk about you adding a guy like Yannick Ngakoue. That's a huge addition. That's the kind of dog mentality they needed from the edge position. And then you have DeForest Buckner at the 3 tech. In my opinion, he's one of the top 5. You have an argument for top 3 pass rushing defensive tackles. And then second-year defensive end Kwity Paye was their first-round pick last year. Had a pretty good rookie year. Took him a little bit of a while to get his feet underneath him, but I think you saw through that second half he started to put some things together. And then they're expecting a big year out of him and another second-year guy, Dayo Adangbo, versatile defensive lineman, can play the edge, can play the 3 technique. He missed half of the season as he was coming back from an Achilles injury that he tore his Achilles during the pre-draft process last year. Colts wound up spending the second-round pick, spent the first 7 games or something on the NFI list. And then he didn't really, he had some flashes here and there during the second half, but he's starting to really stack days together here at training camp. So those are kind of the guys that you're looking for that need to really make the difference for the pass rush.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense what you said there about Gus Bradley. Because if you just kind of look at the depth chart of the Colts defensively, like it doesn't look like a team that really stands out. You don't like see the big names necessarily, where it's like, oh wow, they got this guy or that guy that's a big impact player on the defense. And I think it has a lot to do with scheme as far as what's going to help propel them to becoming a top 10 defense again in points allowed, like they were a year ago. So Kwity Paye is an interesting one. Obviously, he only had 4 sacks last year.
Mhm.
I'm just curious what can be built off of that. Now, was Justin Houston on the team last year? Is that right, or was it the year before?
2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago. Okay, I was losing track of my years on Houston. I don't know what he's up to these days, but with Baltimore, that makes sense. He's been passed around lately, I guess.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think Ngakoue is probably the big addition at this point for the defense that's going to have to make an impact right away because obviously 33 sacks last year is not going to be good enough
Right.
to get this defense, to stay on par as being a top 10 because that's what you need for this type of team. This style of team needs to have a, top 10 defense to be relevant, I think, in a lot
Right.
of ways. But overall, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, Gus Bradley has a good scheme and I like what they're working with. So obviously the secondary, Stephon Gilmore, what do we think about his addition? Is he over the hill? I mean, is it irrelevant at this point, or is this something that can actually make an impact on the team, you think, here in 2022?
I mean, so far it's been great. So far it's been this dude is a lockdown corner. I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to be, defensive player of the year kind of guy, but I think he can definitely provide, number one cornerback on your team kind of status and production. He's a smart guy. He knows how to play the boundary. He can play in press. I think he was, according to Pro Football Focus, was one of the best cornerbacks in press coverage last year. That's big in Gus Bradley's scheme. So for him, it's going to be all about transitioning from mostly man coverage, which is what we've known him for, to transitioning more to having your eyes in the backfield, playing zone, making plays against the run, and understanding your assignments. So, but it's the addition of Stephon Gilmore's, it's huge for the defense because you kind of just look at that one side and you just kind of leave it. You let him do his thing, let him, be that anchor of the secondary. And then you got guys like Kenny Moore, who's basically a Swiss Army knife. They like to use him as a nickel blitzer. He can play the outside too. And then, you've got some young guys at safety and Julian Blackman, third-year safety, and Nick Cross, who they drafted in the 3rd round this year. But Gilmore's definitely going to be the anchor of that secondary.
Gotcha. When do you think Darius or Shaquille or whatever you want to call him, Leonard, comes back from the pup here?
It's a good question. At the beginning of training camp, I would have said he probably was going to be back probably, I don't know, halfway through training camp, but it just seems like it's taken him a little longer, which is, I mean, it's fine. The Colts never really came out and said he was going to be ready at this certain date. So it's more, they've come out and said it's on track. I think it's questionable that he's going to be ready for week 1, but I don't think even if he misses week 1, I don't think it's going to be too much longer. But for him, it's going to be, they corrected the issue. I guess he had, he's dealing with an ankle issue last year and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. And I guess, they did some extra tests this offseason. It wound up being he had two discs impinging on a nerve, which was messing up his ankle and his calf. So, hopefully they got that fixed. I'm not a doctor. I don't, I didn't see the MRIs or anything like that, but, they say it's fixed and now it's just adding strength, getting conditioning back. And that's going to take some time because, he hasn't done anything. He didn't do anything during the spring. So it's going to take some time. He might not be ready for week 1. He might be ready. We're not really sure. I think he's a guy that can probably go through the majority of training camp without playing a whole lot and still, they can still throw him out there for 70% of the snaps in week 1, but we'll see. Even if he misses week 1, I don't think it's going to be for too much longer after that.
Cool. Jason, anything else? All right, guys. So at this point here, make sure you guys like, subscribe, follow, no matter what platform you're on. So we're spread across between Let's Talk Sports and the Sports Buffoons. So, all right, prediction time. What do you got the Colts record to be?
Yeah, this is the fun part, huh? I say probably 10-7. I think that's a prediction I made earlier in the offseason. I think they can hover around there. I don't really see them being a 12-13 win team. I think the way their schedule's set up, they got to take on the whole AFC West. That's going to be a gauntlet. I mean, they lost to the Raiders last year. The Chargers are getting better. The Broncos got much better with Russell Wilson. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. So, I think 10-7 is probably a safe prediction. Their biggest competition is obviously going to be the Titans. The Titans are a good team. They lost A.J. Brown, which is huge in my opinion. He was kind of that difference maker in the passing game that I don't necessarily know if you're going to get that right away from Treylon Burks. I think Burks was a guy coming into the league who you see the upside, but there's a lot of development that has to take place. And I don't know how quickly he can do that. I think they were also like 6-3 in 1-score games, stuff like that. So you're probably going to see a little bit of regression there. But it's going to be between them. I mean, I could see both teams finishing 9-8. I can see both teams finishing 10-7. They probably split the season series with each other. But, when it comes down to it, I think the addition of Matt Ryan is going to make a huge difference, both in the locker room, on the field. When you get into those tight late game situations, those 2-minute drills, him having that experience, him having been there for 14 years, having been to the Super Bowl, even though, he choked it away. I think having that experience, at least, that's going to probably make the difference. And I think it's going to give them a really good chance to win the division.
Good deal. JG?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have, outside of the AFC West, they actually have a fairly easy schedule this year. I would say top 5, top 6 overall. And so I like their improved defense. Obviously, the quarterback is better to me. I think they're easily 2 wins better than last year. I'm going to go 11-6.
Ooh, 11-6 on that one. Very interesting. I do want to point out the Colts last year, and you guys know one of my favorite things is point differential. To look at that, they were plus 86, which was actually better than the Titans were last year. So with that said, and even though they only had, I think it was 9 wins a year ago, I'm going 10-7 for the Colts this season. I think they're just a little bit of a step up because I like Matt Ryan quite a bit. I don't think he's washed up quite yet. I think this is his chance to kind of reemerge and have another year or two of successful play in the NFL. And I like the Michael Pittman 100 catches prediction. So I think he's going to have a big year. So don't be saying that too loud, though. He's my fantasy boy. So
me too,
that
man.
on the download for me, please.
Me too.
Oh, man. I got him. So as I talked about the Titans during that time, thanks. Okay. No, that Bodkins. Okay. So I got him 10-7 and then losing the tiebreaker to the Titans.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be the last 3, or not last 3, but 3 games before the Giants and the Houston series is where they're going to lose it at. They got Dallas. They got a bye week. They come back to play Minnesota and then the Chargers.
Yeah.
And then they got should be easier games with the Giants and Houston. But with Tennessee being so early in the season, I think those 3 games might come back, and those are going to be must-wins for the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be very tough because you're at Dallas and at Minnesota for those games. And then you're in the dome with the Chargers and Justin Herbert. So I think those 3 games alone are going to be tough. So I got them 10-7, but finishing second place to the Titans. So real quick, too, what's the Giants prediction? Because you're a Giants fan, right?
Yeah, you got to ask me that, man.
Yeah, what's the Giants prediction, dude?
Look, I like what they did bringing in Dable and Joe Shane. I like the direction, at least, that they're heading. You still got some stuff to deal with from the Gettleman era. I mean, Kenny Golladay paid him as a number 1. I don't know if he's a number 1 anymore. I like their draft, Kayvon and Evan Neal. I mean, those were 2 of my favorite draft prospects coming out this year. I think the Wan'Dale pick's going to wind up working out. I think he's a good slot receiver, even though he didn't test as well as we thought he was going to. But it's all going to come down to Daniel Jones. I think I'm probably against consensus. I think he might be, I don't want this to come out the wrong way. I think he's better than people think, but I don't think he's the future. So I think what's going to happen is he's going to play this year out. They probably bring in Tyrod Taylor for a while. And then, next year they're looking hopefully at a first-round quarterback. So prediction for them, I mean, probably be optimistic and say 5 wins.
Just right quick with the Giants. I've got the over-under at week 4, Tyrod Taylor being the starter. The over or the under?
I'll take the over. We'll say like week 8.
Ooh.
Yeah, but that's probably me just, kind of feeling a little bad for Daniel Jones and what he's had to deal with since he entered the league. But I do love me some Tyrod Taylor. I do. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I love Tyrod Taylor.
I like it. Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks for joining in, talking with some Colts with us. Maybe we'll get you on for the Giants as well.
Hey, anytime.
So really do appreciate you hopping on tonight. So, what Colts Wire,
Yeah,
Giants
Colts.
Wire are
Yep.
the two spots, right?
Yep, and then I do some fantasy football stuff for Touchdown Wire, which is the same network, and then the Huddle as well, which is still a part of USA Today. So it's basically the same conglomerate, but just different roles.
Okay, awesome. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you joining in, and we'll catch you later. So thank you.
Absolutely, I appreciate it, fellas. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin Hickey, everybody. So that was pretty good. All right, guys. Now it's our turn to talk. Shall we talk a little Jaguars? Must we?
Sure.
Must
Why
we?
not? Let's do it.
All right, guys. So Jacksonville Jaguars is an interesting team. Very interesting free agency to start off with Christian Kirk signings and stuff like that. Zay Jones coming into play. What else they get? They got a few other guys here, right? Evan Ingram, right, for the offense. And Travis Etienne coming back healthy. So let's start with wide receivers real quick. We got Marvin Jones Jr., Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and Laviska Shenault Jr. is basically looks like a fourth stringer at this moment. Is this something that we should be concerned about?
I mean, I don't have any problem with these guys. I mean, they gave Christian Kirk a 4-year, $72 million deal after not even having 1,000 yards receiving last year. So, but I don't really think it's about the receiving core. I think it's about the fact that you got rid of that cancer, Urban Meyer, and you brought in a better coach, and Trevor Lawrence is going to have a better year this year. And so I think Trevor Lawrence is definitely going to take a step forward and be the guy that we thought that he was going to be when he got drafted. So, I mean, the receivers are going to be fine, but this year is all about having an actual NFL head coach and, also a guy that's going to help his quarterback.
Yeah, that's the big thing with this team right now is getting Doug Peterson in there because that is a guy that can be with this franchise for, hopefully 5 to 10 years would be the expectations if everything goes well, because you got a coach who's getting another opportunity, who should have never been fired in the first place from Philadelphia, to now go in with a young quarterback and develop him over the course of time here. I think Trevor Lawrence is a great athlete, a great quarterback, and has a lot of upside to work with. I think structurally, now that we have cut the dead weight of Urban Meyer, I think that we can get back to a foundation that's going to help this guy succeed. And by the way, Christian Kirk is a pretty good receiver, guys. I know he didn't hit 1,000 yards. I understand that. But Christian Kirk is a very viable receiver. Do I want to pay him number one receiver money? No, not necessarily. But he's a solid number two if we could make him that. Zay Jones has been around for quite a while. Can you guys believe Laquan Treadwell is still in the league and still on the Jaguars, as a matter of fact?
He's only 26 years old.
That's amazing to me that he is still running around in the league. It
Didn't hit his prime yet.
I guess not. But the main thing with this offense, though, looking at it, obviously Travis Etienne, the expectation is he's going to be able to step in right away and make an impact in the passing game, receiving game. He's going to be the third down back. If you guys have paid attention, James Robinson is still getting most of the workload on first and second down so far in training camp and preseason. That's kind of been the idea right now with this offense. So the offense, to me, this is Trevor Lawrence's chance to improve himself and not worry about the record, not worry about what the defense is doing. Just go out there, play your game, corral the interception numbers a little bit, and get that settled in a little bit better. And that way you have something to build off of going into year 3. Defensively, I think this is actually not a bad team on paper. I think they're going to have a problem with some of the pass rush. I do like Josh Allen, obviously. That's a guy who we as Chiefs fans really were interested in the Chiefs trading for. It didn't happen, but it is what it is. I loved the addition of Trayvon Walker. We saw his first game, came out right away, made an impact, and then Devin Lloyd at linebacker too. So there's some good young guys on this team to work with. And honestly, I think that this is going to be a fun team to watch. We're going to see another great young AFC quarterback blossom before our eyes. And mind you guys, Josh Allen's first year in the league wasn't so hot either. So I want to make sure that we all are remembering that right now. while we talk about Trevor Lawrence. So going into year 2, I think Lawrence picks it up a lot in the rushing game for his own, abilities, I should say, because he's just going to get smarter and smarter over time. So I think the Jaguars are going to be a fun team to watch, and I'm looking forward to it. So should I just give my record now?
No.
Okay.
All right, guys. So before I give my thoughts real quick here, I did want to share I did reach out to a couple of Jags guys. This guy, Thomas here, he's going to be writing for the Let's Talk Sports, did send me some stuff that I asked some questions on, just to get some thoughts from the Jaguars fans. So let me do this here. All right. So I asked him, does Trevor Lawrence take that next step? Mike and Jason kind of touched base on it, but he says, I do see Trevor taking the next step this season, putting together a very solid season. Last year, he got put in a lot of situations where he had to push the ball, and I was forced to try and play catch up most of the season, which we all know that. If you watch this film, he has all the tools to make all the throws and his ability to lead the team. He showed that plenty in the dumpster fire that was his rookie season. He handled everything like he was a seasoned vet, which is a fair take. I do believe that he did handle those situations, especially Urban Meyer's coach, very well. You never really heard him come out and trash anybody or trash the team or stuff like that. So he took it pretty maturely, which is kind of what I expect from it anyways. So then I asked him, what does it mean for this Jag team to have a winning coach like Doug Peterson compared to what they had last year? It says, for this young Jaguars team to have not only a Super Bowl winning coach, but also a former player in the league is huge. Peterson, I believe, will bring culture change to Jacksonville that we have been missing for a long time. You can see that change pretty much everywhere around the Jaguars organization. The players are buying in on Peterson. It's already shown in the preseason, especially the starting offense and defense. They look so much more prepared, which is huge because that's what Doug Peterson brings to the table. And that's from the Andy Reid tree, is that he will be able to do that. So he'll get his teams ready. They will be ready to play, and they won't be at the club, or whatever he was at, Urban Meyer. So he won't be doing none of that.
He won't be in the club with James Harden.
That's right. So I asked him then, Josh Allen and the defense, do they improve? Like a lot. And he says, I do see the defense and Josh Allen improve this season, at least finishing as a top 15 unit in the league. Man, that's gonna be a tough one, but I'd be
Let's just say it's going to be better. It could be better.
Right.
It's going to be a little better.
So he says they have a very athletic and fast defense now, and it's set to be set in action. His biggest fears for the defense is depth, which is fair. The preseason so far has shown that their depth is not very good, and if their starters miss time, we could be looking at defense at the bottom of the league, just like that. Josh Allen, in his own right, I believe the season will take another step, mainly to the fact that Trayvon Walker will draw some attention, as well, meaning that the teams have to choose which guy they want to double team and which one they want to be manned up. And you see that across most defenses as well. So I like that answer. I don't know if top 15 I would go that far, but I'd be willing to watch it. I can tell you that. And then his prediction time real quick is finally my prediction for the Jaguars this season is that they will finish 7-10, but will be a competitive 7-10. They have a tough AFC division draw this season, facing the whole AFC West, while also trying to match up against the Ravens as well the season as well. Personally, would have Jaguars going 0-5 in those games. He thinks the season will be a good look into what the future holds for the Jags, which he believes will have them at least appearing in a playoff contender in a loaded AFC. So fair enough. I appreciate you sending Tommy those answers over on that, because I kind of feel the same way. If you look at this roster, just piggyback on these guys. I actually don't mind the receiving core. I think Zay Jones could be more effective with the Jags than he was the Raiders for sure, and definitely more than the Bills. I hope Laquan Treadwell goes away at some point, because we need to stop seeing that guy come into play. But look, Chenault Jr. is definitely a guy that I'm really shocked that would be fourth on the depth chart. Like, that just blows me away. And he's the one that going late in like the 15th through 18th round PNC. Obviously, the Lions, whatever. I love the Brandon Sheriff right guard signing. That was huge for them. They really needed that. Evan Ingram, we'll see. If he's healthy, that's a top 7 tight end in my book, if he's healthy and stays healthy. James Robinson, a little worried about his comeback so short in time from that Achilles. I hope he can keep it together and not go out, for an even longer period of time. But if he does, that Chavez Etienne and James Robinson combo could be pretty dangerous. As far as the defense, I agree on the depth not being very far down for my sake. Shaquille Griffin's kind of questionable because, Seattle let go of him. I don't know if I'm too confident in that right there. The secondary is kind of questionable too. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. If they get a front seven, it don't matter really who's in the secondary truly. So we'll go around. Let's see here. Oh, sorry. Jason Hammett says Mahomes' first year he couldn't even start until the last game. What a bum. Hot take. Hot take. Oilers Titans. Jags will give the Colts all they can handle. They always do. The Colts' weakness on offensive line is both tackle spots. They couldn't block Josh Allen, and now add on Trayvon Walker. They have the Colts number. We'll see, man. It's definitely a different team on both sides. I feel like different mentality going into play. So appreciate you commenting in, Oiler Titan. So, all right, prediction time. JG.
Right, let me give you my damn prediction. But before I do, I want to just kind of figure out a way to stop the hate on Laquan Treadwell real quick, because you have to understand he's auditioning for the USFL in much the same way that Ronald Jones of the Chiefs is auditioning for the USFL. They'll both be there soon, so just stop the hate real quick on those two guys. As far as the Jags are concerned, Trevor Lawrence, as I've said, he's going to be better this year. How could you be worse now that you don't have Urban Meyer? They also have the 7th easiest schedule. Like I said, same thing with the Colts. Once you get away from that AFC West schedule, it's a fairly easy schedule here. So I'm going to give them credit for 7 wins here. I think they're going to go 7-10.
Yeah, sounds like I feel pretty optimistic about the Jaguars this year too, and I think it's going to be, like I said, fun team to watch, kind of develop in a lot of ways and mature into their own way, and they will give the Colts a fight because that's for some reason the Jaguars tend to do that every year. It doesn't seem to matter, but the idea that they're going to have a top 15 defense is not going to happen. They were bottom 4 last year in points allowed per game, and they will be better. I could definitely see a situation where the Jaguars defense is. Maybe goes up a couple more spots where they're bottom 10 instead of bottom 5. So I'll put it in that way. And if I'm going to make fun of any receiver on this team, it's going to be Laviska Shenault Jr. because I am not a fan of him whatsoever. So you guys.
So we got 3 guys auditioning for the USFL then.
Well, I'm
2 guys on the same.
There's
team.
a reason why he's 4th on the depth chart right now, Tanner. So I just want to throw that out there for you guys. No, he actually has horrible hands, Tanner. He had the worst drop rate in the NFL last year. And
does he have stone hands like MVS?
Stone hands and about as slow as Rich Eisen. So, yeah, this is one of those kinds of deals. So, anyways, guys, I have the Jaguars finishing optimistically 8-9 on the season. And that tells me that if we can get things going right, and I trust my boy Doug Peterson, if things go rolling the right way going into 2023, with some more additions, from the draft or whatever else, free agency, build up the defense a little more again, then you look at a potential playoff team in Jacksonville if Lawrence continues to mature.
So you're biased because it's somebody out of the Andy Reid coaching tree. That's what it is.
No, it's someone that's worth a crap. That's why. It's a coach that knows what he's doing compared to the things they've had here recently. So anyways, go ahead, Tanner.
My prediction is not as optimistic as you. I think they will be better. They will be competitive, but I'm going 6-11. So 6-win team, just over the Texans, not finishing last, but they're not going to be a first-round pick for the first time in 2 years. So there's that for that. So, I'm going 6 wins for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. So anything else on the AFC South, guys?
Wonderful. Just get it over with. I don't want to talk about the AFC
You're done
South
with them?
ever
You're
again.
done with them? It's over? All right, guys. So next week, we'll do the NFC South. Hope to get a former Bucks player, Chiefs player, Lonnie Martz on to talk some Bucks. We'll definitely get a couple other guys on. Michael, hopefully for the Panthers, that we've talked to a couple times on the Sports Buffoons. Other than that, still working on a couple other guys for the Falcons. And Jonathan Gershman, I might be able to get him on for the Saints. He does our baseball stuff. He's a big Saints guy. So I guess just the Falcons. I got to find the Falcons guy.
Should be pretty easy these days, right?
Andre Rison on it.
Just call up all of your damn Marcus Mariota fans out there. I'm sure they'll be lining up right at the door.
Do you want to call work done?
If I can get work done on, we're going like 3 hours.
Work done could talk about the Falcons and the Buccaneers for us. How about that?
Well, yeah, we'll get him and Lonnie, and we'll just talk.
And Tony Gonzalez too.
We get Tony on.
The
Hey.
best tight end in the history of the NFL.
I don't know what we got to do. Be okay with that. Oiler Titan here. Comment here. Oiler Titan says Titans 14-3 through 17-0 somewhere. 14's a lot, man. You guys went down a lot.
Just real quick, mine was 10 wins for the Titans.
I was 10 wins.
10 wins.
9. I went 9.
Okay, so yeah, we're the ones that have to bring everyone back down to real life again.
They're good, but not great. They're good, but not great.
Yeah, they're good. They're good enough to win the division. Let's just say that. So I know you don't, but I do. So, guys, here in about, I don't know, give us 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Mike and I are going to hop on for another mock draft. I'm doing mock drafts every night, guys. Every night around 10:30, I'll be on doing mock draft at some point and do a best ball. We got some auction prep tomorrow. Tonight, we're going to do our Yahoo League spots for a mock draft on Yahoo. So our big one at the end of the month. This weekend, we're going to do a lot of best ball as well. I'm going to do the big $25 one, try to, see what we can win prize-wise coming in the season. But yeah, man, just come join, chat with us. We'll give you some fantasy advice the best we can, or at least look it up, give you our best advice we can. Let's see here what we got. Saturday, 11 o'clock, a.m. Central, Let's Talk Sports. JG, I think it's going to be joining. Yep.
Yes,
JG
sir.
and myself will be on talking with Dan. I'm sure NBA will be in the works there because Donovan Mitchell trade is back on possibly for the Knicks, I heard. And LeBron James just signed a 2-year massive deal, dude. Big
contract.
deal. Oh, my. That's huge. So we'll probably bring those two into play. Then, and of course, a little bit of football. Let's see here. Monday is Buffoon Bodkins. No clue what we're doing yet. And then we'll be back here Wednesday for NFC South roundup. So, but yeah, let me click through here real quick. So he has Oiler Titan has Jags 9-8 or 10-7, Colts 8-9. That seems low, man. And then Texans 6-11. Hey, that's better than us. We had 4 wins and 5 wins. Not nobody had 6, right?
3.
You had 3. He had 5.
Yeah.
And I had 4. So, and even the Texans guy had 4. And then the most injured team in NFL history and most difficult schedule in history, 2022, will be a cakewalk for the Titans. Hey, don't forget about the Chargers, all right? They like to get injured too. So, all right, guys. Everybody make sure you like, subscribe, follow for more. We are the Sports Buffoons. We're also on Let's Talk Sports, so make sure you sub in both spots. Hit the bell, and we'll catch you guys later. See you guys.
We are out.